as a Christian nerd, is it hard for you when it comes to wanting to enjoy things, especially when, when certain like subjects get brought up and like nerdy stuff that you may or may not be interested or may be interested in?
Um, is it hard for me? Um, I don't think it's hard for me. Um, and the reason is I feel like I have spent enough time in the Word, and I've spent enough time in culture to understand where some things meet well and where some things don't meet well. Um, and you know, I have not personally felt like this has been a big struggle for me. Um, I run into people all the time where it is a huge struggle for them, and you know they're striving with, you know, can this, is this okay, is that okay, is this not okay, is this not okay. Um, and you know, because I do what I do, you know, hosting podcasts and um, you know, talking to guests about different nerdy things and running nerdy Facebook groups. You know, if I'm not called a heretic on a weekly basis, I feel like I'm doing my job wrong.
Redwall, like just picking that up to make it a game.
There's a crazy story of that, which is all tied to a moment where a friend basically connected up with the original author, Brian Jakes, who was alive back in the time in 2011, and basically is asking Chris Skaggs, the owner here. There's two partners in the company, and Chris Skaggs was they're chatting away and say, "Hey, can you possibly do a mobile game for Brian Jakes? He's looking to do possibly a video game." And they're like, "Oh, sure, we could do that," because they had done several mobile games over the years. And so that's how it kind of first started, but through a bunch of crazy stories and some work with Random House, because Brian Jakes passes away within the year. And they first started talking about this, and a bunch of cool connections to both the family and to Random House, and a bunch of God intervention. We ended up with license for, I forgot what it was, somewhere around 15 games we could do, or products actually, because some of them could be soundtracks, they could be video games, both mobile and PC and console. So like all of that came to pass through the years. It took a few years to lock it all into place, and but basically we got to do a 3D adventure game, a cooking game, which Ray and I worked on most recently. It was the most recent release. And then there's also the Lost Legends Rebel app, which is a kind of choose your own adventure in that universe. And we also have a trivia game as well. So,
nice.
And then there's a soundtrack. And we did the adventure game into 3 different acts. And then we also put it all together into an anthology, which also recently released.
Nice.
So, and those are available on Steam, PC Steam, PlayStation, and Xbox.
Right.
And then mobile for the mobile games, which is the Lost Legends Redwall app. And we also have another one called Escape the Gloomer, which came out, I believe, on mobile and on, what do you call it? Amazon Kindle Fire. So, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, also Steam.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, also Steam too.
As far as getting people to sit in the front these days, I and Nathan both represent Pentecostal churches, and I can guarantee you that like you said, you almost have to pay people to sit in the front, unfortunately, these days. So, and ironically, there's a few pews in the church where I came from that have people's names on them, but unfortunately, most of them people are dead. But anyway, but yeah, so I understand that. And so now you started something called Nerd Church, JXN, which I'm guessing is for Jackson. So tell us a little bit about that. How did you get into that kind of thing?
Yeah, I was playing Overwatch with some friends, like from our church, every night of the week, basically. And the thought just kind of popped into my head, like, what if you could somehow turn this into church? And so that stayed there for a while, and then eventually my conference, so the Southern Michigan Free Methodist Churches, they started saying that we needed to plant new churches, and it was okay to think outside the box. They brought in a movement called Fresh Expressions, if you've ever heard of that, and they more or less just teach people like whittle down what you think belongs in church, get it to the core biblical principles so that you can say this is in fact a church, and then create it and run with it. So all of our churches were being encouraged to start new initiatives like that. And when they start off, they're just kind of called apostolic initiatives. They have to kind of graduate toward a church, which in our conference, we haven't hit that point yet. COVID especially got in the way with the pandemic and all that. But we launched it at a Comic-Con. We got a booth and just kind of told people who we were, and people started checking it out. And it was one of the it's been going on for about 5 years now. I think we just had our birthday, our 5th birthday, like 2 weeks ago.
With your services, with being Dutch, is there like still vestiges of that, or is it more modern now?
Oh, there's a lot of variety depending upon what church you are.
Okay.
And how old your church is. So they're going to be everything across the board, from really liturgical churches. For instance, I don't do this year round, but we're in the season of Advent. I would wear a robe with a stole on top of it for Advent, trying to mark myself off as not anything special. Don't be looking at me. I am here to, be the one guiding us all together through services. And so during, Lent or Advent, I would usually wear those. Now, there are other churches that always wear those, and there's some churches that never do that. So I'm kind of in that in between where I do it sometimes, and that's other times I don't. But if I'm doing sacraments, I like to do that as well. So you're not paying attention to what I'm wearing. You're paying attention to what I'm doing, that kind of a thing. But you'll also have churches that will be really contemporary music, praise teams, bands, whatever. And the church down the road might have pipe organ. So there really is not continuity in style of music. We like to talk about a service in this kind of a framework. There is our approach to God. There is what we call word and sacrament, so the scriptures and whatever sacraments we might be doing, and then response to God. So that's how a service would be guided. And so then within that, there is freedom of form and some variety within there. We do have some liturgical parts, but some people who didn't grow up with it and don't have that tradition are going to use less of it.